Piston fan. Their slogan was, we come to work. That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governor should come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Hey, hello, and welcome to the Bill Press Show on this Thursday, April 9. Good to see you today here on Free Speech TV nationwide, all over this great country of ours. We are there with you on Free Speech TV, DirecTV, and the Dish Network. We're also here worldwide on our video stream, growing every day, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR TV, President Obama in Jamaica. Spent the night in Jamaica last night. He's got a round of events today in Jamaica before he takes off this evening for the Summit of the Americas in Panama, where the big expectation is that he will have his first tete-a-tete, his first meeting with Cuban President Raul Castro, to talk about improving relations between our two countries. In Boston, the jury had no problem finding Dzhokhar Tsarnaev guilty on all 30 counts, and pretty soon they will hear the arguments for and against the death penalty, which the same jury will decide. Down in North Charleston, South Carolina, continuing focus on the shooting of that unarmed black man, Walter Scott, by police officer Michael Slager, who has been charged now with murder. He's in a lot of serious trouble. His attorney representing him dropped out of the case after he saw the video, said he refused to represent him any longer. And the fundraising website that had been set up to raise money for the defense of Officer Slager, they dropped it yesterday, said they would no longer raise money for him given what they had seen on the video. And Rand Paul spent the first day of his new campaign once again attacking reporters who asked him questions that he didn't like. This man had better get used to it because he's got a long way to go. All of that to talk about, all of that you want to call about at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
my beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Police officer in North Charleston, South Carolina, fired from the force, and the attorney who was representing him has dropped the case after he saw the video. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? Hello, hello. On a Thursday, April 9, the Bill Press Show. Here we are. You're on the radio, on your local progressive talk radio station. Looking for the Bill Press Show. You got it. Nationwide, wherever you happen to be in this great land of ours, we're there with you on the radio, and we are there with you also on Free Speech TV, on Direct TV, and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. It doesn't matter. You can run, but you can't hide. You can try, but you can't escape us. We'll find you somewhere and catch up with you and enjoy having you with us this morning to talk about the news of the day. And there's a lot of it to talk about. Yes, more repercussions about that video down in North Charleston, South Carolina, of the officer shooting the unarmed black man, Walter Scott, and everybody raising the question about what would have happened if there had been no video. We know what would have happened. That white officer would have gotten away with murder. President Obama in Jamaica on his way to the Summit of the Americas in Panama. And no matter how hard we tried at the White House to find out why the president was going to Jamaica, it just seems the answer is because he wanted to, on his way to Panama. I mean, if you're going all the way down there, you might as well stop on the way to some place you've always wanted to go to.
He went to the Bob Marley Museum in Jamaica last night.
Yep.
I mean, I guess that's...
How could you go to Jamaica?
Right, how could you not do that?
How could you go to Jamaica without...
Reuniting the Choom Gang,
That
perhaps?
would be like going to Rome without seeing the Pope.
That's right.
Paying deference and homage to the Pope. You got to do that. Anyhow, we'll bring you up to date on all the news of the day and take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. As always, Team Press, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning with Alicia Cruz on the phones, ready for your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And yes, you're looking at us on Free Speech TV and on TawkrTV, thanks to our videographer, Cyprian Bolding. And we are ready to move into the news of the day with the help of George Zornick from The Nation magazine a little bit later. Clinton Yates from the Washington Post, columnist, will be here as a friend of Bill. We'll jump down to North Charleston, South Carolina, to talk to a reporter on the scene, jump up to Boston to talk to our reporter in the in the courtroom where the verdict was announced yesterday on Mr. Zornick. And we will also be talking with the Reverend Barry Lynn, who is a Christian minister who was not invited to the president's prayer breakfast on Tuesday at the White House. Why? But first,
this is the Full Court
Peter,
Press.
what do you got? What do you got?
Just a couple of other stories making news. You know, when you go to an IKEA, it's not just all about furniture. They have their restaurant, too. There you go.
All right.
Get your cocktail mixed up. They have restaurants in every IKEA.
No, I didn't know that. I've never been in an IKEA.
You've never been in an IKEA?
Seriously?
You've never been in an IKEA?
Why would I buy that junk?
It's kind of an institution. You just like to go and look at.
Junky furniture.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's affordable furniture. It's not for everybody, Bill. Mr. Liberal Elitist, but there are some people who like IKEA furniture.
I've just never been in one. Carol's been in one.
Anyway, as I was saying, if you go...
this table came from IKEA, didn't it?
I think it did, as a matter
Be
of
careful,
fact.
it might break.
Yeah, I wouldn't pound on it
How
too hard.
flimsy it is.
Shut up for a second. So when you go into an IKEA, they have restaurants. They have restaurants, and they're known
you're making a point, right.
for their meatballs.
So does Costco.
I'm not just talking. I'm just not just rapping with you about IKEA.
No, okay.
So when you go to an IKEA, they have a restaurant, and they are very well known for having their Swedish meatballs.
Right.
Remember a couple years ago, there was the whole issue about the horse meat and the Swedish meatballs they were selling at IKEA?
Yes.
I had no idea. The restaurants at IKEA are responsible for 5% of their overall revenue, with close to $1.5 billion in sales last year in IKEA, just for the restaurants. So they sell a billion meatballs every year.
Whoa.
And yesterday they announced that they are changing things up. They are going to start selling veggie meatballs for the first time. It's because if you go there and you want to experience the IKEA meatball sensation, you couldn't because they're meating them. So starting next year, they're going to have veggie meat.
That's ridiculous. I mean, you eat fine. You're vegan, don't eat meat. If you're not, eat meatballs, but don't try to mix the two. It's ridiculous.
People love those Swedish meatballs.
Well, it's fine, Swedish meatballs, but I mean vegan meatballs.
I know.
No, what's the point?
Don't call them meatballs.
Tofu,
Don't
turkey.
call them meatballs,
Yeah, that's my
right?
thing. They're just
Tofu balls.
Vegetable balls or
No.
Yeah.
No.
You know,
I prefer Costco. Now, Costco's got a restaurant that serves great hot dogs and pizza. I know
And
that.
their frozen yogurt is very good with the strawberries.
That's a real thing.
Are we really reviewing the restaurants of
You started
box
it,
stores?
dude. You started it. I didn't.
So, Bill, the Masters is underway down in Augusta. They say it's a tradition unlike any other. You know, they have the whole run-up all week of different events and things like that. So yesterday, they had the par 3 competition, and Jack Nicklaus was playing. He's 75 years old, and he hit a hole-in-one.
Oh, my God.
During the par 3 competition yesterday. He said it's his very first hole-in-one at Augusta. He's hit plenty of hole-in-ones in his career, but not plenty, but he's hit a couple. But this is the first one he's ever hit at Augusta National, so congratulations to Jack Nicklaus.
And Tiger played yesterday with his son and daughter as his caddies.
It was very sweet.
This idea that Tiger's going to come back and win the Masters, forget it.
It's a long shot. Although this is where he plays his best.
Forget it.
I'll watch.
Yeah, I'll eat a vegan meatball before he wins the Masters.
Boy, Masters just so I can get you to eat a vegan meatball. We go to Oklahoma City, where the Whalen family went to a Kentucky Fried Chicken for a nice family dinner. And in the Kentucky Fried Chicken, they have a television in the corner, right? So they're sitting there, they're eating dinner, and the next thing they hear are the sounds that can only be one thing: moaning and heavy breathing. And
oh no!
Someone had put a porno on the TV inside the KFC. Gerald Whalen, the father, took out his phone and began filming it so that someone would believe him. The video is out there. I may tweet that for BP Show. It's not graphic. It's mostly just the sound, but you can go see it from our Twitter page at BP Show.
Yet another reason to go to the Kentucky Fried Chicken franchise.
To go to KFC.
Bill, it's finger licking good.
Oh, no.
God.
What? That's their slogan.
We got to dumb without that all day. Yes,
That's their
indeed.
slogan.
Yeah, I can think of about a lot of one-liners after sex at the chicken farm. Okay, good. 14 minutes after the hour now. Yes, indeed. Wanted to start out at the White House briefing yesterday. You know, go to the briefings every day, and frankly, because, got to stay on top of what the White House is up to, stay on top of the news, and bring you the latest from the White House every day. Tweet from the White House. Go there on the expectation that there might be some big news to report or some new insights into some of the issues the White House is dealing with. It is frankly not always the case, more often the case, that the White House briefings are boring and don't produce any news. But once in a while, there's a glimmer of interest and a glimmer of maybe a new wrinkle or something. And that was the case yesterday. and a question raised by a distinguished journalist who sits in the back of the room and is not always called on. And, of course, that is me. I was there for all of you. So what happened was, Jonathan Karl from ABC News, and I've been curious about this, and we've talked about it here on the show, but I never asked the question at the briefing. Jonathan Karl from ABC News in the front row is called on every day. After asking a series of questions about the Iran nuclear deal, said, by the way, so Martin O'Malley, former governor of Maryland, was on the Sunday shows, and he said that he doesn't think that the nomination for president should be seen as a family kind of tradition, just passing on a dynasty approach, in other words. Does the president agree with that? And Josh said something basically like, well, there's been a lot of talk about another Clinton, another Bush Clinton race, but I'll let others kind of speculate about that. So I thought, that's not really the question that the way I would have asked it. That's to the heart of the question. So later on, I had my chance, and I pounced, remembering, as we talked last week, that Larry Cohen, the president of the Communication Workers of America, among other prominent Democrats, wrote a letter out there urging other Democrats to run for president, not just Hillary Clinton, because a healthy primary is good for the party. So I raised that again and threw that to Josh Earnest.
Bill.
Josh, let me go back to what John was talking about in terms of the primary. There's a group of prominent Democrats last week, including Larry Cohen, president of the CWA, who put out a statement encouraging other Democrats to run because a healthy primary would be good for the Democratic Party. Does the president, as the head of the Democratic Party, share that belief?
Yeah, that's a creative way to ask the question.
Creative way to ask the question.
I mean, congratulations on that.
Right. So I told Josh, I said, well, I've been working on it. Josh gives an interesting answer, right? The reason I wanted to raise that is because who beat Hillary in a contested primary in 2008? Of course.
The president would indicate that as arduous and difficult and tiring as the 2007-2008 Democratic presidential primary was, that he emerged from that process with some scars, but he also emerged as a better candidate.
Very good point. Yes. A better candidate.
Each race and each candidate and the political dynamic in each race is different. And so I think it's important at the same time to not overlearn lessons from previous campaigns. And I'm sure that the strategists, frankly, on both sides of the aisle are cognizant of that as well.
So I wanted to follow up on that, of course, because he did say, he did admit he emerged as a better candidate because of a contested primary follow. So certainly he would like to see Democrats hold on to the White House, and having engaged in and benefited from a competitive primary in 2008, I hear you're saying that we can conclude that he believes a competitive primary in 2016 would also be the way to go. Aha, right? A creative follow-up, if I must say so myself. He benefited from it, engaged in it, didn't hesitate, came out a better candidate, came out president of the United States, right? So how could he not feel that the same process would be good for 2016? Josh still won't go there.
Well, again, each race is different, and so the president is, and candidates are different, and the political dynamic in each race is different. So I would encourage. I mean, again, I think people take this to heart. It's important not to overlearn the lessons of the previous campaign as well. So. No, I don't think anybody would make the case that you should ignore them, but I don't think anybody would make the case that just because it happened 8 years ago, that the same thing should happen this year too. So you didn't hear maybe but Josh said we should not overlearn the lessons, and then I said nor ignore them, and that's where he picked up again. I think he ducked. I mean, he ducked the question. Clearly, he did not want to come out and say, yeah, let's have a big open primary this year, a big healthy contest, because then everybody would have said the White House attacks Hillary. I keep trying to make this point, friends. Don't take it the wrong way. It is not an attack on Hillary to say
that we need, the Democratic Party needs, I say we because I'm a Democrat, we need a healthy, open, aggressive, challenging primary this year for the Democratic nomination. It must not be a coronation. That would be bad for the nation, bad for the party, and bad for Hillary. And the flip of that is a really good primary when you get those candidates up on stage and they're debating the issues is good for the country because they learn what the Democratic Party really stands for, and they see the depth and the diversity of the party and the power of the party on the issues. It's good for the party, again, because people see that the party does stand for something. It's not just a rubber stamp of the Republican Party. And here's the most important thing. It's good for the candidate because it sharpens the candidate. It forces them to deal with the issues. It teaches them to be good on their feet. It gives them the practice of being good on their feet through these debates and through going around the country. And so, they sharpen their skills that way. The worst thing that could happen to the Democratic Party, in my humble opinion, would be for Hillary Clinton or anybody else to just be handed the nomination without having to fight for it, without having to win it, and then get up on the stage for the first debate against a Republican candidate in October and fall flat on his or her face because they haven't been tested. And they've just been, on the beach all summer long. It's crazy. So you hear the debate. You hear the discussion with Josh Earnest yesterday. Tell me I'm wrong. I dare you. 866-55-PRESS. Let's have a big open primary. Damn it, if nobody else will run, I will. Let's go.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university. And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania. Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water. Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go at 26 minutes after the hour, talking about the call for an open, healthy, contested primary on the Democratic side. God knows we have one on the Republican side, where the Democratic side looks like everybody's afraid to stand up and challenge Hillary Clinton. Yeah, that's what they told Barack Obama in 2008. Same arguments, very, very word-for-word arguments. You be suicidal to run against Hillary Clinton. After all, she's former first lady. I mean, she's former senator from. She's a senator from New York State. I mean, Bill Clinton and the Clinton machine. You can never beat them. You'd be wasting your time making a fool of yourself. Suicidal, on and on. Barack Obama didn't believe them, and he was right. And look where he is today. And it's not like, not only, is it clear, I think, that a primary ends up being good for the candidate and good for the party and good for the country. It's not like the Democratic Party doesn't have other alternatives, right? I mean, there are a lot of good people out there, potential candidates for president other than Hillary Clinton. She's not the only one. Is our gene pool really that small? Our talent pool really that small? That the entire massive Democratic Party only has one person qualified to run for president? I don't believe that. I mean, that's crazy. What about Joe Biden? Okay, I put him at the top of the list. And again, what about Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and Martin O'Malley? Let's go in the Senate. Look at some other people. Sherrod Brown, Amy Klobuchar. Just names that pop into my head here. Kirsten Gillibrand, right? They are every bit as qualified, more so than Rand Paul or Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio, for God's sakes. How about Jerry Brown? Yeah, absolutely. Jerry ought to run. I don't care how old he is. His birthday the other day, 77. Big deal. Andrew Cuomo up in New York. Come on, Democrats, get with it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Hey, here we go. It is just about 35 minutes after the hour now here. Thursday, April 9, challenging the White House yesterday, trying to see if I could get President Obama, who challenged Hillary Clinton in a contested challenged her in the primary, Democratic primary in 2008, who beat her, who became president of the United States, who is now head of the Democratic Party, to at least, through his spokesperson, Josh Earnest, yesterday, at least say that a contested primary was good in 2008 and would be good again in 2016. Okay, we didn't have one in 2012 because he was the incumbent president. And there's sort of a tradition, not always carried. Teddy Kennedy and Jerry Brown ran against the incumbent president, Jimmy Carter, in 1980. But usually, if you have the incumbent president from your own party, you leave him alone, or someday her alone. But when it's wide open like this, contested primary, the head of the party should be the first one to say, yes, everybody's welcome. Let's have it out and see who's the strongest candidate. That makes us a better party. Couldn't get the White House there yesterday, but it's still the truth. What do you say? And again, it's no slam on Hillary. I want to win. I want a Democrat to be the next president of the United States. If it's Hillary Clinton, I will do cartwheels in front of the White House. I'll be so happy. But the way to get there is not to hand it to her. Diane, out in Marshfield, Missouri. Hi, Diane.
Hi.
What do you think?
I think that I was watching, of all things, the nightly show,
Yes.
and Bernie Sanders was on there.
He's
and
great.
Yeah, and he was asked if he was considering running for
Right.
the Democratic Party. He's seriously thinking about it. He's looking at it.
Well, I know he is, but he hasn't jumped yet, Diane.
Well, for that matter, Secretary Clinton hasn't announced yet.
Well, okay, but she's going to announce. I appreciate the call. She's going to announce any day, believe me. In fact, it could happen as early as next week. Marco Rubio's going to announce next week as well. Look, yes, it's no secret. It's been reported. Well, Bernie Sanders has been a guest on our show many times. I've talked to him about this privately, met with him in his office, met with him in a local restaurant here, met with him in my home to talk about this. I've encouraged him to run, as I've encouraged Jerry Brown and everybody else who will listen to run, because I want to see 4 or 5 and Joe Biden to run. I keep coming back to that. Don't forget Joe Biden. He's got every bit as much experience and as many credentials as Hillary Clinton does. No, he'd be another older white man. Right. I don't like that, but I'd rather have Joe Biden by far than Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio. And Joe is great. It was great on all the issues. I'd love to see Joe Biden run. I've encouraged them all to run because I want to see 4 or 5 Democrats up on that stage all through the primaries, and then may the best person prevail.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
It was really kind of bothersome to see this narrative start to build even a couple of years ago, right, where they said, oh, well, if Hillary runs, that's going to clear the field. Right? Like, I saw that line. I'm just sure you saw that line so many times.
No, it's important
clear
that we
the field.
That we clear. No, it's not important that we clear the field. What's she afraid of? Right?
Yeah.
If she's afraid of a primary challenge, then, you know.
Maybe this ain't for her.
Maybe you ought to just take care of your grandbaby.
Right.
Say hello to Mary from Woodbridge, Virginia. Hi, Mary.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning.
Hey, how about bringing up a suggestion that a good host for a primary debate with somebody like Jerry Brown, especially if he's not interested in being a candidate, a good progressive host in a debate could be very effective.
You mean have Jerry play the role as host?
Yeah, if he's not interested in being a candidate.
I'd rather have him as a candidate.
Same here. I think he's great. He's done wonderful.
Yeah.
In California, but who knows about it because they don't.
Yeah, not enough attention to that. No, he has done. He's done a great job bringing California back. I've said many times, I worked in his first administration and still for 4 years and still a good friend of his. But I think he's at the top of his game right now after being governor for 8 years and then mayor of Oakland, and then he was attorney general, and now back as governor of California. But no, I don't want him as a moderator. I'll moderate the damn debate. Let's have Jerry Brown. Let's have Jerry Brown on stage. Got to say a quick word back to, we're going to talk at the top of the next hour with Clinton Yates from the Washington Post about the situation down in North Charleston, South Carolina. That's where we started yesterday. Many of you calling about it. This shocking video of the police officer shooting the unarmed black man, Walter Scott, 8 times in the back as he ran away to escape a taser gun, which the police officer claimed that Walter Scott actually grabbed and stole from him. And yet on the video, we see the police officer, after shooting and killing Walter Scott, walking over and dropping the taser alongside of his body basically planting evidence to support his lie. Police officer Ed Driggers, a man I think who has really, really shown a lot of backbone and a lot of wisdom in this case, and a lot of fairness. A police officer we can all be proud of. Police Chief Ed Driggers of North Charleston, South Carolina. Here's his reaction when he saw that video.
I have watched the video, and I was sickened by what I saw.
And then this man, again, unlike the situation where we saw in Ferguson, Missouri, where the blue line all gathered around and everybody was defending Officer Darren Wilson out there in Ferguson, Missouri, from the police chief on down, and basically repudiating any claims on the family that the police department had not acted properly. This police chief went out and met with the family.
I got to meet a daddy who is in mourning, a mama who is in mourning, and we talked father to father.
Who would have thought that South Carolina
would
lead the way in a case like this? They were also immediately said body cameras. We're putting body cameras on all the police.
Right.
And but the day after the video came out.
Here's the police chief making that point, and he did it on his own.
Today, I made an executive decision and have notified my council. We have already ordered this morning an additional 150 body cameras so that every officer that's on the street in uniform will have a body camera.
Good for him. Good for him. Yeah, I'll tell you, man. Yeah, I made an executive decision. I told the council what I'm doing. He didn't ask the council for the money. He didn't ask the council for permission. He didn't say, get it down to the political level. Is this a good deal or not? No.
It's wild, man.
I made the decision. I did it. Every officer on the street's going to have a body cam.
And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with this? Like, what are people freaking out? Are police officers lining up to bash this guy? No.
Most police officers welcome the body cam because they know it confirms their version of events, and if they're lying,
you got the tape.
Then too bad.
Yeah.
And somebody said this yesterday. One of our callers, and I couldn't agree more. If you're afraid of having a body cam recording everything you say and everything you do, get another job.
Mm-hmm.
Get another job. And by the way, for this police officer, if you think we're being too hard on him, as one Fox News reporter at the White House yesterday hinted that we were being too hard on this police officer, the attorney who originally agreed to defend Officer Michael Slager, once he saw the video, said, goodbye, I'm out of this case. There was a local website set up to raise money for the defense of Officer Michael Slager. As soon as the video was released, the people behind that webpage said, we're taking that down. We're not going to defend this guy as well. And he has been fired from the police force, which, of course, never happened in Ferguson, Missouri.
Yeah.
South Carolina leads the way. Who would have thunk it? George Zornick, Washington correspondent for The Nation magazine, standing by to join us in the next segment.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple, and they add up, and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you know, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that could be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues, and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. You know, and like our community said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go at 12 minutes before the top of the hour. Senator Rand Paul announcing a couple of days ago that he is running for president, as not unexpected, in 2016. And then he goes off on the road where, once again, his specialty seems to be fighting with reporters and challenging reporters and insulting reporters. Yesterday morning, it was Savannah Guthrie on the Today Show who tries to pointing out some contradictions or, let's say, sudden changes of position on Rand Paul's part. Here's how that testy little exchange went.
You once said Iran was not a threat. Now you say it is. You once proposed ending foreign aid to Israel. You now support it, at least for the time being. And you once offered to drastically cut. Once drastically wanted to cut defense spending, and now you want to increase it 16%. So I just wonder if you mellowed out.
Why don't you let me explain instead of talking over me, okay? Before we go through a litany of things you say I've changed on, why don't you ask me a question? Have I changed my opinion?
Have you changed your opinion?
Better way to approach an interview.
Okay.
No.
Is Iran still not a threat?
No. Listen, you've editorialized. Let me answer a question. You ask a question and you say, have your views changed, instead of editorializing and saying my views have changed.
Well, actually, I think she was asking the question. She was pointing out the examples and saying, why have your views changed? Somebody better, it seems to me, pull Rand Paul aside and say, hey, dude, you got a long way to go here, right? This is not off to a good start. George Zornick from The Nation magazine has been writing about this race and Rand Paul and joins us on our news line this morning. George, good morning and happy anniversary, 150 years for The Nation. Very exciting.
Good morning, Bill. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's only about 5 for me, but it's a long run for the.
There you go.
Much longer run for the magazine.
You mean you weren't there at the beginning?
No, not quite.
So, what's up with Rand Paul? I mean, doesn't he realize that that this is not necessarily putting his best foot forward, shall we say?
No, it's not at all. It's a bad look for him. I mean, I will cut him a little bit of slack. I think you know, Bill, that interviewing politicians, this has probably happened to you, dozens of times. This is what politicians, I've had it happen to me many times, where politicians push back hard. Sometimes they yell at you. They ask you to rephrase your question.
Yeah.
That's all somewhat normal. But the presidential stage is a much brighter light. It's a higher platform. This isn't, huddling with a reporter in the hallway. This is, this is prime time. And when he's on these national interviews, and for many people, it's the first time that they're really getting exposed to Rand Paul. They don't really know who he is before this. If this is their first impression, it's not a good one. I mean, these are the kind of tough questions that he's going to face pretty much every day between now and, wherever the disposition of this race is. So he's going to have to learn to take them with a little bit more grace and a little bit more, frankly, charm.
Well, there is charm and Rand Paul. I'm not sure they belong in the same sentence as two words, but there are some legitimate questions, right, about his changing positions on certain key issues, particularly when it comes to Pentagon spending and foreign policy.
Yeah, and these are the kind of issues that reporters really like to sink their teeth into. I mean, this is like the classic Tim Russert gotcha. Oh, you used to believe this, but now you believe this. And it's not even, I shouldn't say gotcha, because Rand Paul is basically reinventing himself from the person, from what made him very popular, into something that he thinks at least will make him more palatable to not only Republican primary voters, but to donors who he's going to have to really fight for. Because, of course, money is the big factor in these things. So, yeah, I mean, he's going to get this question every day until now and the end of the race. He's going to have to find out a good answer.
The one thing maybe that you can give him credit for is that he's very upfront about the fact that he said those things, whatever positions he might have taken, before he decided to run for president. Mm-hmm. And now that he's running for president, he's open about the fact that I've got to win enough votes to get there, and so therefore I have changed my positions in order to win some votes, right? But that's pretty cynical.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
It came up with his interview with Hannity the night before, and Hannity is not generally someone who's hostile to Republican politicians, though he is a little bit more so to Rand Paul. And Rand Paul basically admitted that, and he sort of said that these are off limits. This is the new me, And I'm just not sure that's going to work. And I'm not sure it's just a good strategy. I mean, what made Rand Paul somewhat popular to this point are some of these things that he's changed his mind on, like Iran, like foreign aid. I mean, that's kind of how he made his bread and butter. So it's confusing two ways for me why he's changing so quickly.
All right. Hey, George, always good to have you with us. Thanks for getting up early for us this morning. George Zornick, The Nation magazine.
Anytime.
TheNation.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive
when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment and the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, we're at the top of the next hour. Clinton Yates, the entire next hour, Clinton Yates will be here as a friend of Bill from the Washington Post. And he and I will talk to Wes Lowery from the Post on the ground in North Charleston, South Carolina. Peter.
Conversion therapies for gay and transgender youth are already kind of dying off, and you're seeing less and less stories about it. But we're going to finally put the nail in the coffin for that. The president last night putting out a statement saying that it's going to be a priority of his administration to take on these gay conversion therapies for gay and transgender youth. This is in response to a 17-year-old transgender youth by the name of Leela Alcorn, who committed suicide last year after receiving a lot of harassment from gay conversion therapies to try and convert her back to being a boy. There was a petition that was put online, received 120,000 signatures at the White House. The president put out a statement last night, said we're going to take it seriously.
Good for the president for speaking out on this issue. By the way, we do know that there will be a cost here, that Michelle Bachmann's husband will now lose his job and probably have to close his clinic. But he can dance for a living.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, hello, and welcome to the Bill Press Show on this Thursday, April 9. Good to see you today here on Free Speech TV nationwide, all over this great country of ours. We are there with you on Free Speech TV, DirecTV, and the Dish Network. We're also here worldwide on our video stream, growing every day. YouTube.com/Tawker, Tawkr. TV. President Obama in Jamaica. Spent the night in Jamaica last night. He's got a round of events today in Jamaica before he takes off this evening for the Summit of the Americas in Panama, where the big expectation is that he will have his first tete-a-tete, his first meeting with Cuban President Raul Castro to talk about improving relations between our two countries. In Boston, the jury had no problem finding Dzhokhar Tsarnaev guilty on all 30 counts, and pretty soon they will hear the arguments for and against the death penalty, which the same jury will decide. Down in North Charleston, South Carolina, continuing focus on the shooting of that unarmed black man, Walter Scott, by police officer Michael Slager, who has been charged now with murder. He's in a lot of serious trouble. His attorney representing him dropped out of the case after he saw the video, said he refused to represent him any longer. And the fundraising website that had been set up to raise money for the defense of Officer Slager, they dropped it yesterday, said they would no longer raise money for him given what they had seen on the video. And Rand Paul spent the first day of his new campaign once again attacking reporters who asked him questions that he didn't like. This man had better get used to it because he's got a long way to go. All of that to talk about, all of that you want to call about at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
One of the most exciting scientific findings of the past half-century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. And the classic example is what happened in the Yellowstone National Park in the United States when wolves were reintroduced in 1995. Now, we all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others. Before the wolves turned up, they'd been absent for 70 years, that the numbers of deer, because there was nothing to hunt them, had built up and built up in the Yellowstone Park, and despite efforts by humans to control them, they'd managed to reduce much of the vegetation there to almost nothing. They'd just grazed it away. But as soon as the wolves arrived, even though they were few in number, they started to have the most remarkable effects. First, of course, they killed some of the deer, but that wasn't the major thing. Much more significantly, they radically changed the behavior of the deer. The deer started avoiding certain parts of the park, the places where they could be trapped most easily, particularly the valleys and the gorges. And immediately those places started to regenerate. In some areas, the height of the trees quintupled in just 6 years. Bare valley sides quickly became forests of aspen and willow and cottonwood. And as soon as that happened, the birds started moving in. The number of songbirds and migratory birds started to increase greatly. The number of beavers started to increase because beavers like to eat the trees. And beavers, like wolves, are ecosystem engineers. They create niches for other species. And the dams they built in the rivers provided habitats for otters and muskrats and ducks and fish and reptiles and amphibians. The wolves killed coyotes. And as a result of that, the number of rabbits and mice began to rise, which meant more hawks, more weasels, more foxes, more badgers. Ravens and bald eagles came down to feed on the carrion that the wolves had left. Bears fed on it too, and their population began to rise as well, partly also because there were more berries growing on the regenerating shrubs. And the bears reinforced the impact of the wolves by killing some of the calves of the deer. Here's where it gets really interesting. The wolves changed the behavior of the rivers. They began to meander less. There was less erosion. The channels narrowed. More pools formed. More riffle sections, all of which were great for wildlife habitats. The rivers changed in response to the wolves. And the reason was that the regenerating forests stabilized the banks so that they collapsed less often, so that the rivers became more fixed in their course. Similarly, by driving the deer out of some places and the vegetation recovering on the valley sides, there was less soil erosion because the vegetation stabilized that as well. So the wolves, small in number, transformed not just the ecosystem of the Yellowstone National Park, this huge area of land, but also its physical geography.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Rand Paul gets in another barroom brawl with yet another reporter. This is going to be an interesting campaign to follow. Not exactly a barroom brawl, an on-the-air brawl, which may be worse. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? It is Thursday, April 9. Wow. Here we are, the Bill Press Show in our nation's capital, coming to you live from our nation's capital on our studio on Capitol Hill. We are joining you on your local progressive talk radio station. Thank you for being there for us. We are joining you on Free Speech TV nationwide and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. So whether you're listening or watching, we welcome you to the program, and particularly pleased to welcome back to the studio. Not sitting in this chair for a change, but here on the other side of the desk. Today, as a friend of Bill, your favorite guest host from the Washington Post, Clinton Yates. Hello, Clinton.
What's up, Bill?
Your fan club is here today, and you were far and wide. They've gathered,
I appreciate that.
Gathered to see you.
Shouts to everybody on, this is camera 2. Hello. I'm joking. How are you this morning?
Oh, good.
So am I.
And you know the team. You work with the team. You know their strengths and their weaknesses by now. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, hello. Good morning.
Very few weaknesses on this team. Come on.
I saw Peter react when I said weaknesses. He said,
Very few.
We're not perfect.
Very few.
Alicia Cruz, perfect to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And we can't say anything bad about Cyprian. We wouldn't anyhow say anything bad about Cyprian, because without Cyprian, we would not be out there on Free Speech TV.
That's right.
We'd all look terrible.
TV.
That's right.
Right. We want to bring you congratulations on your big move at the Washington Post.
It's a temporary move, just so everybody knows.
It's temporary?
Yes, I know
it's
temporary.
Into the world of sports, that's where you find him now at the Post.
Yeah, I'm doing 2 weeks on the what's known as the DC Sports Bog. There's a funny story behind why it's called the Bog and not the blog.
Because somebody misspelled it or something? No.
Sort of. So the guy who started it, my colleague Dan Steinberg, who's a great guy, shouts to Dan, he used to cover Maryland football and University of Maryland, and they were coached by the Terps. They were coached by a guy named Ralph Friedgen, the Fridge, who was a charismatic individual, to say the least.
A man of large carriage.
A man of large carriage who was very charismatic. And the story goes that Dan walked into the Fridge's office and said, "I'm leaving the beat because I'm starting a blog." And the Fridge looked at him and replied, "What's a bog?" So obviously that's funny, but also it means it's sort of a catch-all for a lot of things, like a la cranberry bog, etc. So
nice.
Doing a couple weeks with them on the sports beat, which means I've been at baseball games and all that.
Are you competing with Cindy Bourne?
No, but I sit next to Cindy.
Oh.
She sits within a stone's throw of my desk. I saw her yesterday.
She's one of our very, very favorite people, and a great guest for the show. We love having her.
She gave me £1 at the desk yesterday.
Nice.
Yes.
Tell her we said hello.
Yeah, please tell her we said hello.
I very much will.
You mentioned the blog. I got to tell you, when we started our show, which is almost 10 years ago now, and we were broadcasting from the Center for American Progress, we had a feature on the show at least once a week. No, every day. Every day.
Oh, yeah, we did.
There was a young guy from the center that we would call who gave us the daily blog report, what was on the blogs. And at the time, I had no idea. My first question to him was, what the hell is a blog?
Exactly. At least you got it right.
Bill Press Bog every day. Nico Pitney.
Nico Pitney.
Man.
Yeah. Who went on to great fame at one time and asked a question at a presidential news conference, and I haven't heard from him since. I have no idea whatever happened to him.
He's around.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm blogging it out for the sports.
Very nice. For you. Yes, indeed. Speaking of sports, the Nats, Game 2 yesterday. We were all dismayed when they lost the opener to the Mets yesterday, thanks to Ryan Zimmerman. They brought it back. Here he is.
Fastball hit in the air to deep left. Kadire going back. Kadire at the track. He's at the wall. It's gone. Ryan Zimmerman with his 185th career home run.
Obviously, you guys didn't watch the end of the game because the more important play was the play he made at first in the eighth to stop what would have been a sure single, leadoff single. Instead, it wasn't. He made a diving stab to his right. Yes,
really,
he's playing first base, so it's a backhand play now. Very nice pickup. Did a good job in the inning.
You're right. I didn't watch the whole game.
I know. That's why I told you.
It started at 8.
That's why I told you, because I wanted you to know.
All right. Clinton Yates here with us as a friend of Bill this entire hour. We'll jump down to North Charleston, South Carolina, to talk to your colleague, Wes Lowery from the Post, who's, on the ground down there. The top of the next hour, up to Boston with Holly Bailey on the Boston Marathon bomber trial, and then Reverend Barry Lynn, Americans United for Separation of Church and State, in studio with us. But first, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Congratulations to Barry Manilow. He married his longtime manager, Gary Keefe. Now, Barry Manilow hadn't come out of the closet before, so this is his way of addressing his sexuality. He married his manager. Manilow is 71 years old, married his manager, Gary Keefe, who's 66. They had a quiet little ceremony. This was actually a couple months ago. This wasn't recent. They kept it pretty quiet. So congratulations to him.
He's 71?
He's 71.
Wow.
And that's a pretty bold way to come out and say, I'm gay. I'm you marry your
Are you
your
gay?
male manager.
Yeah, this is my husband.
Yeah, this is my husband. Check it out.
It's a pretty big move.
Right.
You know, Bill, the Masters, I mentioned, are underway, and it's a tradition unlike any other. So ESPN...
I hate you for saying
I just see how many times I can fit that into the thumbnail today. That's 2. ESPN took a poll of golfers, all professional golfers, and they granted them anonymity to find out which golfer is the least liked on tour, and the results were overwhelming. Any guesses?
Mickelson?
Not Mickelson, although he's high up there.
Yeah.
Ooh. Hint.
Right.
Is he non-white?
No.
It's not Tiger.
No, it's not Tiger.
No, I wouldn't think so. Okay.
Bubba Watson.
Bubba.
People hate Bubba Watson.
Really?
Bubba Watson has a history of kind of being a jerk.
Kind of being a guy named Bubba?
I was about to say, starting with the fact that his name is Bubba.
He's good, though.
He's really, really good, but he also is kind of a jerk. He's no-showed at some events. When fans ask him for stuff, he's always shuts them down. He's one of the best golfers in the world, and he knows it, so he acts like it, and people just don't like it. So it rubs people the wrong way.
That doesn't surprise me. He should be way more popular than he is, and he's not that popular.
That's true. That's absolutely true. Earlier this week, Bill, Prime Minister of Britain, David Cameron, went to someone's house, just a citizen's house, to have lunch. You know, he's in the middle of a re-election campaign here. The vote happens May 7th. But here's the issue. He went to someone's house for like a backyard barbecue, and they served him a hot dog on a bun that he then ate with a knife and fork. Which people don't like.
What?
No.
People are freaking out.
No.
People are freaking out, legitimately. The Washington Post has a whole write-up and a collection of tweets of people just wondering what the hell he's doing. What kind of a monster eats a hot dog with a knife and fork?
This reminds me of the de Blasio situation.
Pizza.
Well, to be fair, I can live with eating a pizza slice with a knife and fork.
Absolutely, yeah.
But a hot dog?
I don't love the pizza thing, but I get it.
Yeah.
I've done the
hot
pizza
dog
thing,
comes with
especially when the pizza's really hot and you just get it and it's hard to pick up or it's
and the
big or
grease.
something.
And it's a wedge. It's a different shape. It's harder to handle.
No, but
I get it.
Let me tell you something else. It's hard. It would be hard to eat a hot dog with
Can you
a knife
imagine?
and fork.
Yeah, it's more difficult. Yeah, absolutely.
How do you cut the whole? Like,
So you've got the link, and he's cutting bites off as he goes. Guy doesn't know how to eat
bites
a hot dog.
of the bun as well as the hot dog?
Bun and meat.
No.
The whole thing.
At the same time?
What a mess.
That's like a Costanza.
The Snickers.
Full Costanza.
With your hands.
eating a candy bar with a knife and fork. Yeah, that's great.
You know what? I'd vote against him for that reason.
Some people are actually saying, how could I possibly vote for someone who doesn't know how to eat a hot
Guy's
dog?
clearly a heathen.
For that reason only.
So they...
I say that as a big fan of hot dogs. Everyone, every chance I can, I can get. On a more serious subject, Clinton, how do you read? What's your read on this North Charleston incident and the video? Any doubt in your mind that without this video, this white officer would have gotten away with murder?
Yeah, there's some doubt in my mind. I mean, the difference in this case versus a lot of others
is that his story smelled from the beginning.
Right, and this guy got shot in the back. And so when you're in a situation in which you say you feared for your life, and it turns out that there's, 8 slugs or 6, whatever it is, a handful plus of bullets in a guy's back, or a person's back, that's a different story. And so, the video here is obviously critical. Do I think that they come to murder charges as quickly? Without the video, no. But to say that you struggled for a taser and you feared for your life, but it turns out that he ended up with shots in his back, I don't think that this case would have been very easy for him to defend at all. And so that's why, people want to commend this attorney for saying, I saw the video and I just bailed on it because I didn't want to, defend him. But obviously he was choosing to defend him at some point. And so I think that there was some precedent for the fact that this guy thought he was maybe going to get away with it, because what's even more amazing to me about this is that he didn't even know he was being filmed, apparently. No. Like, that is stunning to me, which is that this guy was relatively close to the scene.
Yeah.
And
he got right up on the scene.
And you presume that so let's say you're the officer, you see someone, and you're just like, okay, that's just a person. Meaning you're not swayed by what they can see with their eyes.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you end up being effectively not convicted, but you end up being put on camera by them, which is just crazy, which means you were willing to do that if somebody was watching with something that wasn't recording. Yeah. But you weren't necessarily maybe not willing to do it if somebody was recording. There's a lot of problems with that. And it was really a very scary video.
But it's a classic case on the part of a white police officer. I feared for my life, so therefore I pulled my gun and shot him. I feared for my life. And he added plus, he stole my taser.
Yeah, I mean
but how many times have white police officers used that same line and gotten away with it?
The superhuman Negro situation comes in, where all of a sudden he turned into the Incredible Hulk, and I couldn't do anything other than blow him away. I mean, yes.
Darren Wilson used the same thing for Michael Brown.
And this is why you have to think about. Listen, we're not just going to trust what every single police officer says when it comes to self-defense. I mean, I understand that there is a obvious code of conduct, but when you see things like this, which was all of the things that unfolded, all of the things that were said until the video came out, and turns out they were all effectively fabrications, you can't be upset at people for wondering why, or for not wondering why, but for saying that they just don't trust what police say on record, because they end up having the last word, and oftentimes it's not the reality.
You were saying that you are not ready to give necessarily kudos to the attorney his defense attorney who dropped out of the case. I want to ask you about the police chief, Eddie Driggers, yesterday talked about his reaction when one of his officers, he sees the tape.
I have watched the video, and I was sickened by what I saw.
And then Chief Driggers went out to the family, met with his mother, Walter Scott's mother, and brother.
I got to meet a daddy who is in mourning, a mama who is in mourning, and we talked father to father.
As Peter said a little earlier, who would have thought that from South Carolina become a police chief?
Yeah, I was actually listening, and I mean, look, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But as the famous comedian Chris Rock said, you don't get credit for what you're supposed to do, or you don't get extra credit for what you're supposed to do. And that's not to say that I'm not appreciative on some level.
In this country, on this issue, I think you do, because so many have failed the test.
That's fine, but I mean, what I'm saying is that what I'm saying is this: I don't think he felt he was going above and beyond his job duties. I think he just was doing what made sense, and I don't know that he's seeking credit. And so, to me, it's like, okay, thank you. That's of course it's the right thing to do.
But he's not a lot. But I think the point we're making is he stands out because so many others have not stood up to
I'm not
test.
disagreeing with that. But to me, I'm not going to be normative to the problem. You see what I'm saying? So just because he's doing the right thing in a case where so many people do the wrong thing, when we should be expecting the right thing, I mean, he's a good guy. I mean, on some level, I don't know him personally. I don't know what else has gone on. But yes, did he do the right thing? Absolutely. You talk to the family, you say what you thought, you tell the council or whatever, hey, we're changing things because I'm not having this. Absolutely, I agree with that. And I think that he sets a good example is probably the best way I would put that. Do you get extra credit for that?
Well said. In fact, on that point of telling the council, here again, the chief acting on his own and then telling the council, not asking their permission, what he's doing.
Today, I made an executive decision and have notified my council. We have already ordered this morning an additional 150 body cameras so that every officer that's on the street in uniform will have a body camera.
That's the mayor, Keith Summey from North Charleston.
That's the.
Oh, that was the mayor that did that? I thought that was Chief.
That's the mayor, Keith Summey, who also has, I think, stepped up to the plate
right.
there.
I'll give him the credit, the extra credit there, because that is absolutely unusual, and he didn't have to do that.
Right.
That's where I will add some extra credit, because it's like, look, we have a problem. We need to change something immediately, not after the alleged facts come out and all of this stuff about whom we should defend and all this other stuff. There was decisive action in this scenario up until this point, and I gotta say,
they moved so fast on this. And again, the shocking thing is that it's South Carolina leading the way on this.
Right.
The police chief, what we've been talking about, the guy's been fired. The cop's been fired already, which we haven't really seen in previous cases.
Right.
The body camera stuff, the
he's
day
also
after.
charged with murder.
Yeah, also charged with murder.
More importantly,
charged with murder. The body camera stuff the day after we all see this video, they're flying on it.
And when we come back, we're here with Clinton Yates as a friend of Bill. We'll also talk to Wes Lowery at the half hour, who's on the ground in North Charleston. A question on this that came up at the White House briefing yesterday that drove me almost to stand up and scream in protest. We'll be right back here on the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
The Bill Press Show.
27 minutes after the hour, Wes Lowery, Clinton Yates' colleague from the Washington Post, who's in North Charleston, South Carolina, joins us in the next segment. We hardly have time for this, but I just have to tell you. So we're talking about North Charleston. A CNN reporter asks Josh Earnest yesterday, saying, you know, now the president's talked about a lot of things, but so this police department down there is 80% white. So she said, so people say, well, they should have had, like in Ferguson, more black police officers. But she said, you know, other people say, that's easy to say, but it's hard to do because you can't, it's not just easy to find black people who are qualified to be police officers.
Qualified.
I almost stood up and screamed, hey, lady, that's what they used to say about you can't find women who are qualified to be reporters. That attitude to me is so ignorant.
That's where there's a little word we like to call supremacy that comes in there, where people just don't understand that if it is different from what they're used to seeing, it is not automatically lesser. That's a very difficult thing for a lot of people to get their heads around, you know, and that's where you look at things like elected officials, look at all the guys who have been president, look at how many people who are in the Senate and in Congress. People don't understand just because you're not a straight white male doesn't mean you are not qualified.
Or in this case, a straight white female. Right?
Exactly.
No, just the whole ignorance of it expressed openly in a presidential briefing, White House briefing.
Frightening.
Absolutely. It shows, I guess, maybe how far we still have to go. All right, let's find out on the ground what's happening down there from Wes Lowery from the Washington Post. Coming up next here.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Geico Motorcycle.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
What do you say, 33 minutes after the hour, Thursday, April 9. It is the Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., brought to you today by the International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers Union. You add those all together, and you get the SMART Union. Good men and women of the SMART Union under President Joseph Nigro giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. Find out more about their good work at the website smart-union.org. Clinton Yates here in studio with us from the Washington Post, temporarily on the sports bog.
A stint is what they call it.
A stint on the sports bog at the Washington Post.
Correct.
Our friend of Bill for this hour, his colleague Wes Lowery from the Washington Post. We've been talking a lot about this situation down in Charleston, South Carolina, on the ground there this morning. Wes Lowery. Hey, Wes, I understand you and Clinton have met before. Is that
we have, in fact, but I don't know if I want to be on the show with him now that he's this big deal sports writer.
Now, come on, Wes.
He used to cover he used to be a man of the people. He used to write about things in D.C. And real and now he's like the sports pundit. I don't know.
Hey,
I don't know.
Everything will be fine. All right, it's good to hear your voice too, Wesley.
Yeah. All right, Wesley. Yesterday, God, there's so many questions. Where do we start? Let's start with Michael Slager and his attorney. We've been talking about that a little bit. It says he's no longer going to defend him, and the fundraising GoFund site or whatever it was that was created to raise money for him has said they're no longer going to raise funds for him, and he's been fired from the police force.
Yes, exactly. It was a pretty swift. What we saw here in North Charleston is that once this video was released, most of the people who were standing around this officer very swiftly abandoned him. One thing that was notable is the police union here locally put out a statement where they, typically these police unions, no matter what we see in the video, no matter what happens, they say, we're standing by the officer. In this case, the police union down here said, it's unfortunate, it seems that the officer did something he shouldn't have done. So they almost condemned the shooting. I mean, I didn't quite go that far, but it was pretty close. And for a police union to come out and distance themselves from an officer, it speaks to kind of how everyone is lining up to step away from this guy once they saw the video.
What would have happened were there no video?
I mean, it seems almost in the family of Walter Scott has said this. Some of the young community leaders and activists here have said this. They believe that if there was no video of this officer certainly wouldn't be behind bars today, and likely never would have faced any charges. Certainly wouldn't be charged with murder. Again, it would have been the word of a police officer against the non-existent word of a dead man. And so the video really changed everything in this case.
Wes, let me ask you, because you've been on the ground in situations like this before, and how do you feel the sort of the basic vibe is? I know in Ferguson there was very much, for lack of a better term, a very violent vibe in terms of the people on the ground, in terms of the protests and so forth. In North Charleston, what does it just feel like for those that are in town, amongst the protesters, amongst people, about what has transpired in the last week or so?
Of course. Now, one of the major differences is in size between like Ferguson and North Charleston. So Ferguson was kind of a suburb, and so it was a smaller community, which meant that the anger was in a lot of ways amplified because the people who felt this so personally were, by percentage, a much larger part of this city. What you think when you hear North Charleston, you almost assume that this is like some neighborhood of Charleston, or it's like a connection suburb. It actually is a huge city. It's the third largest city in South Carolina, and so like the North Charleston part is kind of in some ways deceptive. This is a really big city. And so there is certainly some similar anger in ways. There's also some organization down here, some union groups that very quickly started organizing these protests. There is anger, and there is a few, some structure already there. There are a few other police shootings here in recent years of young black men. And so there's a little bit of organization already, but the kind of deep-seated anger. There certainly is the same distrust that you see in a lot of minority communities, especially a lot of black communities around the country. Some real skepticism, a lot of complaints as I'm talking to people. I'm hearing the same type of, hey, actually, yeah, this is just like when I got pulled over on some nonsense about a tail light last week, and they called the dogs. But it's not, Ferguson was so unique in that, and I talked to other reporters who were down there a lot, it was almost as if like the social contract had been broken. Where 50 plus 1% of the people in Ferguson said our government's not legitimate, our cops aren't legitimate. It became Lord of the Flies in a way. Mm-hmm. We're certainly not seeing that here in South Carolina, although there is, like I said, a lot of distrust and a lot of anger that we are seeing.
We've been talking also about the role of the mayor, Keith Summey, and the police chief, Eddie Driggers, in this. I mean, talk about a contrast. Right, to Ferguson, Missouri.
Exactly. And that's what the piece we wrote, myself and my colleague Mark Berman had in the Post today. We tried to get at this idea of the lessons learned from Ferguson and how we're now seeing these police shootings being handled very differently. How everyone has seen how on the largest scale Ferguson failed in many ways in terms of being transparent, in terms of providing information, in terms of assuring the public that things are okay. What I think a lot of police and local leaders across the country have realized, what Ferguson laid bare, is no matter what happened or what we believed happened between Michael Brown and Darren Wilson, what you saw was everyone began to agree, okay, if we kill someone in the street, maybe it isn't okay if we don't tell anyone what happened for a week. Maybe it isn't okay if we don't answer any questions. Maybe people do have the right to want to know these things. And so what we're seeing is a different level of efficiency and a different level of, people are much more aware. Mark Morial at the Urban League said this to me yesterday, maybe 2 days ago now. They're all blended together. But he likened it in some ways to after Hurricane Katrina, how miserably that had been handled locally and at the state level now 10 years ago. And he said, and then look at the way Hurricane Sandy was handled. After there is a public failing of local government in some way, the next guy almost always gets it right or gets it a little bit better because no one's going to go make those same mistakes. So Hurricane Sandy was handled by the East Coast local officials, remarkably better than Katrina. And that's not a completely fair comparison. But it's this idea that you let when someone else makes the mistake, you're going to make sure you don't go make the same mistake.
That's an interesting comparison, and I wonder how that fits into a different sort of thing that I've thought about all this, which is that South Carolina is very much the South. I mean, we're talking about the Confederate South here, and the reaction of the police chief and the mayor was one that very much, I don't know. I don't know how far you can get into this, but there seemed to be a level of contrition there that might have been due to the fact that these are states that have had to face these kind of issues in a very real life way, differently than a lot of Midwest states have, differently than a lot of states on the East Coast and on maybe the West Coast have. And how much do you think the fact that it happened where it happened has affected the way the people whom reacted how they have reacted?
No, I think that's a really good point. I mean, because you're right. This is very Southern. This is very. I mean, even just culturally, as a I'm eating barbecue for every meal. I mean, North Charleston is very much the South. One of the cannons from the Civil War, the first fire, is still here.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I do think that has in some ways played a role in terms of what the response has been and the understanding that when something happens, it must be responded to. In some ways, a hypersensitivity that, in sometimes in communities like this, certainly in states like South Carolina, every once in a while, a Confederate flag shows up somewhere it shouldn't, or every once in a while, someone puts a noose somewhere. And what they figured out over time is that you have to respond to that. You have to immediately repudiate it. You have to immediately address it. That's the reality in a lot of these southern states, is that a lot of the local officials kind of seem to understand, at the very least for public perception, but also to try to distance themselves from things that they may not like, that they have to wrestle with these things because of the legacy. I do think that factors in. The other place I think that factors in has been on the ground, and part of this is a cultural kind of southern, construct. But as some of these protests have started to pop up and some of these demonstrations, it's extremely clergy-led in a way that we didn't necessarily see in Ferguson. Extremely, every 10 minutes of these protests, there's a prayer circle. It's very, in a lot of ways, it reminds me of hanging out with my family up in Charlotte, North Carolina. My black family in North Carolina is a little different than my black family in Philadelphia. and we're seeing this, and I'm seeing this a little bit on the ground, even in terms of the angry protesters are saying a few more amens and a little fewer curse words.
That is a big difference, huh?
Huge difference.
Yeah. Does that make you proud, South Carolinian, Peter Ogberg?
It makes me a little prouder to be a South Carolinian. Yeah, I grew up in Charleston. I think you hit on some very, very, very important and very nuanced points about just racism in that area. Everybody has it in their life, right? You will come across it. You can grow up in other places as a white person and probably not be completely clueless to the fact that racism exists around you. But if you're a white person, black person, whatever, in South Carolina, you will grow up and have to decide how you're going to handle racism.
Yeah,
that's just a part of growing up there. So it's really, really interesting to hear that this new school, or newer school anyway, is handling it in a lot different way than I would have expected it to.
Wes Lowery, thanks so much, Wes, for your time again this morning. Anytime there's trouble, Wes is on the scene, and he's on the air with us, which we really appreciate.
I'll see you at Stan's, Wes.
I will see you at Stan's. You got to tell them about that. Bring Bill.
I want to. Peter, have you ever been to Stan's?
I've been to Stan's. Yeah, I've been to Stan's.
Well, I haven't. What's going on here? All right, Wes.
Me, Wes, and Peter are hanging out.
Right. Yes. We'll be right back with Clinton Yates. Your call's welcome on the situation down in North Charleston, South Carolina. Is this a turning point or more of the same? 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go now at 12 minutes before the top of the hour on Thursday, April 9. Holly Bailey joining us from Boston. Talk about the Boston Marathon bomber. Verdict yesterday at the top of the next hour right now. We're talking news of the day, mainly out of Charleston, South Carolina, North Charleston, with Clinton Yates here as a friend of Bill for the entire hour. Clinton, before we move on to some other stuff, Tony out in Chicago has a quick comment on the great WCPT. Hi, Tony.
Hi. I was just calling to say that Malcolm X a long time ago said anything below the Canadian border is the South. You know, we don't need to get into that. The one thing about Southern racism is it's all about staying in your place. And that's what Peter was kind of alluding to, the decisions people have to make. Racism in the North, look at New York. We had a tape. The guy's still off. The guy that took the video is in jail right now, and he's so afraid that he's going to be harassed. He's not even eating because they found some rat poison in the food. So, you know, don't get, as the kids say, don't get it twisted that, like, the South racism is all about staying in your place. Northern racism a lot of times is even worse, because people don't think they are racist.
Right. I think that's kind of what I was trying to say. I mean, you
Tony,
will face. It's a very, very good point.
Thank you. Yeah.
Racism everywhere, but I know white people who made it to adulthood and never really actually had to embrace or understand that there was racism all around them. In the South, it's way more open. It's way out there. It's not as subversive as other things, but.
And to be fair, South Carolina also has a very specific history.
Yes.
All right? I mean, like that. Let's not just, I mean, I wasn't just sort of blanketing statement as in the South. I mean, I'm talking about South Carolina, the place where they fought. I mean, you know, like they, what do they call themselves? The most profitable colony. I mean, it was an original colony. And, you know, they still have things there that look exactly how they did when they sold slaves there. It's not just about the fact that it's in the South. We're not just talking about the notion that's in people's minds. I'm talking about the way that it looks, the very specific things of how they market themselves. South Carolina has a very, very specific setup that is different from almost every other state in America in terms of what's happened there and how it correlates to the people that live there.
In case you haven't been there, if you go to downtown Charleston, the market area, the little open air market where they sell goods and tchotchkes for tourists and things like that, is the actual market where they sold slaves. So
it's also, I was going to say, it's also always been a market. They just sold a different product.
It's always been a market. It's always been a market.
It's
and
called
they've
the
rehabbed it.
International Trade Market.
is.
If you
Trade.
switch those letters around, you get a different word in the middle. That also has 5 letters. Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I'm saying. So, like, I mean, North versus South, blah, 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 but South Carolina specifically has a very, very interesting history about how it relates to racism, black folks, white folks, and how positions of authority, have been manifested.
Okay, and I have to tell you, off on a tangent here maybe, but we got there thanks to Tony. When I leave Washington, D.C. to go see my family, my little hometown, I drive north, okay?
Okay.
I drive north to the little hometown where I went to a white school, I went to a white church, and where the businesses were they serve either white people or black people. My father had the only business that owned by a white man that served black American. We didn't call him that at the time. Yeah, so Tony's right that it's not just limited.
Yeah,
racism.
no, she's right.
And segregation was not just limited to
She is right.
to the Deep South. Do you have any comment on Rand Paul, who announced a couple of days ago?
I don't understand Rand Paul. I mean, every time I see him on television, he's saying something crazy, and I'm like, what? Maybe I'm like way off base here, but there's something about people when they decide to run for president that shows either who they completely are or are not. You can tell people that are so coached or so image conscious that the person that they're presenting is the person that they think can win. But then you also get some people who are just so off the chain that you're like, oh, you are obviously just flying by the seat of your pants because your ego is so out of control. And to me, Rand Paul falls in the latter category. I'm like, what? You can't be on TV telling people how to do their jobs, shushing people who are asking you questions that are completely legitimate, talking about we don't exactly know the reason for climate change and all this other stuff. I'm like, where have you been? You know what I mean? Like, it's not even about the specific opinions. It's about the complete obtuseness with which he sort of addresses what are major issues to people. And you're like, dude, if you get in a major market debate situation, you are going to embarrass the hell out of everybody involved. Forget about just you. Yeah. Because I have no idea what's apparently going on in the world, never mind the country, and it's just really, really, really bizarre to watch because, I mean, again, he's running for president of the United States of America. Like, what world are you living in? It's really wild.
Well, he says he's a different kind of Republican, and you watch him and you think maybe he's a different kind of human being.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's really something, and I just don't see anybody who can just legitimately follow him and be like, yeah, I believe in this guy.
Now, you sit in this chair long enough, you know what the clock is, man, so we are there.
Sorry.
No, we're delighted. You're here. Thank you for coming in. All right, Clinton, good to
see you, Bill.
All right, we'll be back to tell you what the president's up to in Jamaica land, Bob Marley land.
Yeah, man.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, if you like those first 2 hours, you're going to love hour number 3. At the top of the hour, we'll jump up to Boston to get the latest on the Tsarnaev trial, the Boston Marathon bomber trial, and how soon we start the penalty phase, and what are the likelihood that Tsarnaev will get the death penalty in liberal Massachusetts. And then, what's the president doing holding a prayer breakfast at the White House? The Reverend Barry Lynn from the Americans United for Separation of Church and State joins us. Big hour number 3 coming up on Free Speech and on TawkrTV.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves, Should I get back? What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, at the top of the next hour, the Boston Marathon bombing verdict announced yesterday. Guilty on all 30 counts. What's next? Holly Bailey joins us from Yahoo News from Boston in the courtroom. And then Barry Lynn, Reverend Barry Lynn, Executive Director of Americans United for Separation of Church and State on the religious freedom legislation in Indiana and other states. Then President Obama, he is in Jamaica, spent the night there. He'll be leaving Jamaica this afternoon to go to the Summit of the Americas in Panama, maybe meeting with President Raul Castro from Cuba.
This is the Bill Press Show.
West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
2 anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
In North Charleston, South Carolina, Officer Michael Slager fired from the force after the police chief saw the video. And his attorney says, I can't represent that guy. Drop the case. Hello, everybody. Thursday, April 9, of the Bill Press Show. Here we are. Turn on your local progressive talk radio station. Bingo! The Bill Press Show every morning, Monday through Friday, for 3 hours to bring you up to date on all the news of the day, inform you maybe the news of this particular day, and then give you your first chance to sound off about it. Glad to be there with you, and also good to see you on Free Speech TV. You know, this third hour on Free Speech is delayed until 5 Eastern, 4 Central. But thank you for joining us, and worldwide we're there with you on our video stream. The entire team, Peter Ogburn, led by Peter Ogburn and Bill Press, of course. I'm part of the team. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hey, guys.
Hey, good morning.
Yeah. This is me. That's you. I gotta get it straight here.
Who am I?
Yes. Who am
Why am I
Why
here?
am I here? Give us a call, 866-55-PRESS, and you will talk to Alicia Cruz here on the phones. Take a look on Free Speech TV, and you will see the good work of Cyprian Bolding, our videographer. So the whole team here assembled and ready to go and eager to jump up to Boston here at the top of the hour, find out what's happening with what happened yesterday in the courtroom. And then at the half hour, Reverend Barry Lynn from Americans United for Separation of Church and State. Very important and always under attack pillar of our republic. Barry Lynn will be here in the studio with us. But first,
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Sabra hummus. Sabra hummus. You've seen Sabra hummus in the stores, no doubt.
Of course.
Well, they are recalling 30,000 cases of their hummus due to possible listeria contamination.
Oh, God. I haven't heard about that for a long time.
Yeah, right? 30,000 cases of it. We're going to tweet out a link so you can find out exactly what you're looking for to see if you might have it or not. It's all Sabra Classic hummus. They have different flavors, but it's the classic hummus. No reported illnesses yet associated with the product, but make sure to go check out our Twitter feed at BP Show. We'll have the link there. You can find out if you've got it or not.
I think Trader Joe's has the best hummus. They have a Kalamata Olives hummus that is unbelievable. It's to die for.
Nice.
So that's my recommendation.
That's your recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
Operation Wildfire took place yesterday, Bill. Do you know about Operation Wildfire?
No.
I didn't either. Nearly 1,000.
Do I want to know about it?
I'm going to tell you about it, so
Oh,
like it.
what would I like to
Comment,
know about it?
baby.
Okay, yes.
Nearly 1,000 suspected gang members were swept up in a nationwide crackdown on transnational gangs yesterday. It focused heavily in Los Angeles. There were about there were 40 different local gangs that were targeted in Van Nuys and Eastside Wilmus and 18th Street in Los Angeles, which area I'm sure you know well.
Yeah.
The sweeps were carried out the surveillance was done all earlier this year, and then yesterday they really went after them. So nearly 1,000 suspected gang members wrapped up yesterday.
Van Nuys out in the valley, gangs in the... Didn't know that. In San Fernando Valley.
And in Fort Worth, Texas last night at the Schieffer Symposium at TCU, Bob Schieffer spoke. And when he speaks, he makes news. He announced that he is retiring from CBS News. He's going to step down, quote, because this is where my professional career began. This is where I wanted all of you to be the first to know. This summer, I am going to retire, end quote, he said at Texas Christian University. So
Yeah, I love Bob Schieffer. He's been a frequent guest on our show.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is one of the most outstanding journalists of all time of this country.
He is without a doubt my favorite journalist of all time.
Me too, especially with the Sunday shows. He's my favorite.
Love Bob Schieffer. And if you haven't read his
total class act.
If you haven't read his books,
yep.
There's a book called What I Didn't Tell You, which is all the
yep.
things you don't hear about behind the scenes in journalism,
Yeah.
which is just phenomenal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Good for Bob Schieffer, and he's had a great run.
A hell of a career.
46 years at CBS, and he also has a really mean cowboy band.
Yes, he does.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he does. And I'm blanking on the name of it right now, but they're great.
We've always wanted to get him to bring his band in studio. Maybe we can do that before he rides off into the sunset. All right. Great.
Honky Tonk Confidential.
Honky Tonk Confidential. That's it. Yep, indeed. Right. Thank you, Peter. At 11 minutes after the hour, the jury filing back into the courtroom yesterday, making their announcement on the verdict. Holly Bailey was there for Yahoo News, has been there every step of the way and been very kind to join us several times, as she does again this morning. Good morning, Holly. I guess no surprises, right, yesterday?
Good morning. And no, I mean, I think everyone expected a guilty verdict this time, especially because Judy Clark, his attorney, admitted on day one of the trial, 20 days ago, that he did it. So there was not a lot of mystery. A lot of people were surprised that the verdict didn't come back quicker, but they were going through 30 charges, and many of the charges had multiple questions. So the verdict form was 32 pages. It was a lot to digest. But yeah, they came back yesterday, and it wasn't much of a surprise.
Now, I was one of those surprised. I had predicted that they would, the very day they started deliberations, they would announce their verdict, but it did take them overnight. But I guess still the surprise on my part maybe was that on every one of the 30, now we don't know what happened inside the jury room, however, but he was guilty on every single one of the counts, correct?
Correct. It had to be. They had to be unanimous. Early on, they did have some questions for the judge about questions about conspiracy, and they seemed to be asking about the murder of Sean Collier, who is the MIT police officer that was killed several days after the bombing. Now, remember, prosecutors have said that they could not say for sure who pulled the trigger. He was assassinated in his car, and so it seemed like the jury might have been getting hung up a little bit on that because they were asking, the questions they asked had to pertain to whether they had to be unanimous on every one of the questions that dealt with the murders, and he was one of them. And so, but again, that's a lot of guessing. We don't really know for sure, but that's one of the questions that they asked.
Now, I've heard a report somewhere that only some of these charges related directly to death penalty. In other words, would make him eligible for the death penalty. Is that true? And if so, how many of them?
Right. There's 30 charges in total, and 17 of them carry the death penalty, and those include the murder and also the use of weapons of mass destruction, which were the bombs. There were some lesser charges, including gun charges and that sort of thing, and those are the ones that didn't include it. But 17 carry the threat of the death penalty, which is what the same jury is going to start weighing next week.
Well, that was my next question. So for the sentencing part of the trial now we move into, right? When does that start? Who decides that? And how are there like opening arguments and everything like in the first part of the trial?
My understanding is that it does work procedurally, basically the same. The judge has not formally said when it's going to start, but we've been told just on guidance that it's likely to be on Monday because he didn't want to have much of a break in between the trials because these jurors obviously are taking time out of their lives to serve on this jury.
So it's the same jury?
Yeah, same jury.
Same judge.
Same judge, same everything, same courtroom, same reporters in court.
Right.
But yeah, next Monday is when we're expecting it to start.
And the prosecution and the defense will make their arguments. So this is what the whole thing has really been. We're getting to what we knew was going to be the only maybe arguable part of this case, right? Which is whether he gets life in prison or the death penalty.
Right. This is the phase that's been, the most anticipated, really, because this is the one where the defense is actually expected to make an argument. Remember, they only put on 4 witnesses in the last in the guilt phase, so they've been expected to save most of their case for this one, which is, when it's the mitigating factors where, the prosecution will say why he should die and the defense will say why he shouldn't. And the defense is expected to talk a lot about the relationship between Tamerlan Tsarnaev, the older brother, and Johar Tsarnaev. And all along they've argued that it was Tamerlan that was the ringleader of this plot, Tamerlan who was radicalized and influenced his troubled brother into this. And so really that's what that's going to hinge into. But one thing that's really interesting is that, also just sort of on guidance, we've been told that the penalty phase is probably not going to last that long, which is a bit surprising because we've always expected that it would go much longer than what the guilt phase was. But behind the scenes, there's been a lot of bickering on the scope of the witnesses. The defense is really wanting to bring in a lot of stuff about Tamerlan, including there was this 2011 murder here outside Boston, which he's been implicated in, and they wanted to talk about that, but the judge so far all along has blocked them from talking about that, and it's unclear if they're going to be able to bring it up in the penalty phase or not. So it seems like there's a lot of behind-the-scenes warring going on exactly over who these witnesses are going to be, and also there's the question of who's going to be willing to stand up for him, for Johar Tsarnaev, and say he shouldn't die. A lot of friends and his family's not shown up in court at all. And many of his former friends have been really shy about talking to the media. It's just saying that, and it's unclear if they want to help him or not.
What's his demeanor in the courtroom?
Yesterday was really interesting. It's been all along just very non-reactive. A lot of people, there's a lot of descriptions that people use to talk about him. They talk about a swagger that he walks in, and it's like a bounce to a step, I would describe. And mainly he just sits in his chair and doesn't have a lot of reaction to anything, even during the most gruesome, awful testimony where people testified about their, Martin Richards' dad testifying about seeing his child dead basically on the sidewalk, blown apart by this bomb, no reaction. And yesterday it was interesting because everybody was sort of looking for something from him. Is this the day he's going to do anything? And he really didn't. He seemed to be very awkward. He was non-reactive, but at the same time he was awkward. He was very fidgety. He didn't really know what to do with his hands and kept crossing his arms and uncrossing them. And while everybody behind him was just staring a hole in the back of his head, looking for something, and he didn't look back at them one time.
Do they expect him to take the stand?
There was some speculation that he might do it, but it's more, I think more people are wondering if he's going to do it in the penalty phase or not.
That's what I mean now. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but his defense team won't say anything about it. And it seems just generally to be such a risk for them because the prosecution has just been really on their game, even for the few defense witnesses that they had in the guilt phase. They just really, tore into them, really highlighting his radicalization that they argued. And so it just seems, and we have, earlier this week I was in court and I heard his voice actually for the first time. And it's, it's very hoarse. And it's one of those things, you see pictures of people, you don't even know what they sound like.
Right.
So, his voice is very hoarse and his face is very injured from, the gunshot wounds he sustained while on the run from the police. And it's just sort of interesting. It's a wild card of what he would do, what he would say, if he would show remorse. And he hasn't shown remorse so far. So, who knows?
And this is a federal charge, correct? Not a state charge. Is that
right? Right. He's on federal charges right now. And then next, there's the local people of Massachusetts have charged him on state charges for the murder of Sean Collier. So this legal fight for Johar Tsarnaev is really not over.
And when was the last time that Massachusetts executed anyone?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. But I can tell you that the death penalty was outlawed here on the state level in 1982.
Right.
And people in Massachusetts are very anti-death penalty, and so that
I know. That's what I'm wondering. And this is a jury. It's a federal charge, but it's a jury in Massachusetts.
Right.
Right, of people from Massachusetts. So.
Right, and even there was a recent poll by WBUR here that basically said that polled people in Boston and asking, and this was after the trial began, after everything, the gruesome testimony, the videos showing him dropping the backpack near the Forum restaurant where the second bomb went off, and 60% or something said that they didn't want him to get the death penalty. So that's all in play here about what these people, I mean, they picked jurors who said that they would be capable of sentencing him to capital punishment. But again, it comes right down to they only need one person to disagree. They have to have a unanimous verdict. So.
To actually do it, I think is going to be that's going to be a hard decision to get. Holly, can't thank you enough. Next time you're in Washington D.C., we'll have to take you out to dinner or something. Thank you for all your good time for us and your great reporting up there. Thanks so much. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Holly Bailey with Yahoo News. I should have mentioned, of course, at yahoo.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur, understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
25 minutes after the hours. Separation of church and state. Does it exist anymore in this country? I'm not sure after this week and the Easter prayer breakfast at the White House. Reverend Barry Lynn joins us in the next half hour from Americans United for separation of church and state. He is on the road, candidate Rand Paul, and his specialty, what he is becoming known for, is getting into fights on national television with reporters. That happened yesterday yet again on the Today Show with Savannah Guthrie, trying to get him to explain why suddenly that he's a candidate, he has changed his position on several pretty important issues. We had Hadass Gold in studio a couple days ago from Politico, who had reported that Rand Paul is known for being rather testy with reporters. If you don't believe it, listen to this exchange.
You once said Iran was not a threat. Now you say it is. You once proposed ending foreign aid to Israel. You now support it, at least for the time being. And you once offered to drastically cut. Once drastically and wanted to cut defense spending, and now you want to increase it 16%. So I just wonder if you've mellowed out.
Why don't you let me explain instead of talking over me, okay? Before we go through a litany of things you say I've changed on, why don't you ask me a question? Have I changed my opinion?
Have you changed your opinion?
Better way to approach an interview.
Okay.
No.
Is Iran still not a threat?
Editorialized. No. Listen, you've editorialized. Let me answer a question. You ask a question and you say, have your views changed, instead of editorializing and saying my views have changed. Okay, let's start out with regard to foreign aid.
By the way, his views have changed. Everything she said is true. Yep. Now, you're allowed to change your opinion in politics. That's fine. But if you do, you also, if you want to survive, have an obligation to explain it.
Got to back it up.
So instead of attacking her, why didn't you just say, yes, I used to say no more aid to Israel, but now I'm for aid to Israel. Why? Because I'm running for president and I want Jews to vote for me.
A perfectly acceptable answer.
All right, right. I used to say Iran was not a threat. Now I say Iran is a threat, and the reason is easy. Because I want conservative hawks like John McCain, or followers of John McCain, who think we need to bomb Iran. I want them to vote for me. In other words, I don't believe in anything, and anything I said before, I'm willing to change my opinion on if it will pick up a vote here or there during the primary. But you can't just attack the reporter for asking the question. Rand Paul in trouble already.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
How about it? 8:33 here. 33. I'm sorry. That's on the East Coast.
I wasn't going to say anything.
But it's 33 minutes
Those of
after.
you watching on tape delay.
It is 33 minutes after the hour, no matter where you are.
Exactly.
In the United States of America. Watching. Brought to you today by the Internet, the Bill Press Show, brought to you today by the International Association of Machinists. Yes, the good men and women of the Machinist Union. Under President Tom Buffenbarger, sharpening America's edge on the global economy. For more information, you can visit their website at goiam.org. Reverend Barry Lynn will be joining us shortly here from Americans United for Separation of Church and State. But speaking of America's labor leaders, we talked last week that one of our best, the president of the Communication Workers of America, Larry Cohen, was among a group of prominent Democrats who put out a call for Democrats to consider seriously jumping in and running for president in 2016 and not leaving the field entirely to Hillary Clinton. So yesterday at the White House press briefing, I had a chance to ask a question and wanted to find out whether or not the head of the Democratic Party would agree with that call for an open primary. My question, therefore, to Josh Earnest.
Bill.
Josh, let me go back to what John was talking about.
Get the microphone.
In terms of the primary, there's a group of prominent Democrats last week, including Larry Cohen, president of the CWA, who put out a statement encouraging other Democrats to run because a healthy primary would be good for the Democratic Party. Does the president, as the head of the Democratic Party, share that belief?
Yeah, that's a creative way to ask the question.
A creative way to ask the question.
So congratulations on that.
He is head of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
The Democrats' number one goal is to hold on to the White House, right? Okay. So therefore, he must have an opinion on the Democratic primary.
He should have something to say.
Yes, right. And he clearly benefited from an open contested primary in 2008. Josh Earnest kind of dances a little bit here.
The president would indicate that as arduous and difficult and tiring as the 2007-2008 Democratic presidential primary was, that he emerged from that process with some scars, but he also emerged as a better candidate. That said, each race and each candidate and the political dynamic in each race is different. And so I think it's important at the same time to not overlearn lessons from previous campaigns. And I'm sure that the strategists, frankly, on both sides of the aisle are cognizant of that as well.
So he does recognize that the president was a beneficiary, very smart in 2008, not to listen to what everybody was telling him. Don't dare run against Hillary Clinton. He jumped in. He's now president of the United States. He benefited, a few scars, but he benefited from an open primary. So my follow-up, of course, is, shouldn't one conclude then that what was good in 2008 is good in 2016, or to put it another way, that what was good for the gander is would be good for the goose?
So certainly he would like to see Democrats hold on to the White House, and having engaged in and benefited from a competitive primary in 2008, I hear you're saying that we can conclude that he believes a competitive primary in 2016 would also be the way to go.
Yeah, right? Follows? Do you follow my logic? I think it makes perfect sense. Again, if it was good in 2008, good in 2016, again, Josh just doesn't want to go there because I think he's afraid by going there saying we need an open primary, he would be accused of attacking Hillary Clinton.
Well, again, each race is different. And so the president is, and candidates are different, and the political dynamic in each race is different. So I would encourage, I think people take this to heart. It's important not to overlearn the lessons of the previous campaign as well. So
or ignore them,
I don't think anybody would make the case that you should ignore them, but I don't think anybody would make the case that just because it happened 8 years ago, that the same thing should happen this year too.
All right. So there we go. And there is a question. And I repeat one more time, I could not agree more with Larry Cohen than the fact that the best thing for the country, the best thing for the Democratic Party, and the best thing for Hillary Clinton would be an active, open, contested primary, not a coronation, but to get the best Democrats we've got out there vying for the seat, vying for the nomination, give them a chance to prove themselves, to tell us what they stand for, tell us and tell the American people where they want to take the country, and then put these candidates to the test. It's a grueling experience, and it's a challenging, demanding experience to be able to, every day get out there, meet the public, and have something to say, explain your positions. A challenging experience to get up there on the stage with all of your fellow Democrats and respond to the questions from the reporters or from the audience, and explain your positions and defend your positions under questioning from some of the fellow candidates. If you don't go through that test, you don't go through that, the baked in that oven kind of, you're going to come out, you're not going to be ready for prime time. I don't care who you are. I don't care how long you served as First Lady or United States Senator or Secretary of State. You're not going to be ready to be candidate for President of the United States unless you have an open primary. And all these people, Hillary supporters, are saying, we got to clear the field. We got to clear the field. Oh, God, we can't make her go through a primary. Oh, no, we can't have somebody run against her. They are wrong. They're dead wrong, and they are doing her, and they're doing the Democratic Party, and they're doing the country a disservice. And it's not like Democrats don't have other Democrats who are qualified. Let's go. Joe Biden. Run, Joe, run. Should the vice president challenge the former Secretary of State? Absolutely. There's no reason why Joe Biden should not run. Bernie Sanders, no reason why he should not run. Elizabeth Warren, except she just seems to lack the backbone for it. Otherwise, she'd be great. I'd love to see Elizabeth Warren run. And look at the other senators or candidates out there, right? Whatever their interests. And look, every one of them, as some people say, every United States senator, when they look in the mirror, they see the President of the United States. Sherrod Brown, Amy Klobuchar, Kirsten Gillibrand, go, go, go. Governor Jerry Brown, Governor Andrew Cuomo. The point is, get out there, run. Every one of them is as qualified, if not more, than Rand Paul, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz. Come on, get serious. We need an open primary. We'll be back with the Reverend Barry Lynn, Americans United for Separation of Church and State.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found on the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
And at 15 minutes before the top of the hour, one of the most valuable and important organizations you can belong to is Americans United for Church and Separation of Church and State. Whoa. Because it is so important and such a fundamental pillar of our democracy. The Reverend Barry Lynn is the head of Americans United. Join us in studio this morning. Barry, it's great to see you.
It's very nice to be here.
And I thought of you of Sunday evening when I turned on, went online, as I do, going to the White House every day, to check the president's schedule, and I see that he is, it was Monday evening, he's hosting Tuesday morning at the White House an Easter prayer breakfast. I screamed out loud and said, "Where's Barry Lynn to stop this?"
Yeah, well, it's tough because he shouldn't.
But not only that, Barry, it was an Easter prayer breakfast for Christian ministers only.
Yes, sadly it was, and some of the people that were there love to be there. You know, everybody loves to get invited to the White House. Of course. But I started in the Clinton administration. I went with President Clinton before he was inaugurated to a church service, not at the White House, at a private place. Very nice. However, you do not, and I never would go to these prayer breakfasts that even President Clinton would hold. There's no reason to do this. It's not like President Obama couldn't have found a place to pray on Easter itself.
He went to church on Easter Sunday.
He went to church, but apparently that's not enough because this was a wide range of Christian ministers. That is, very liberal ones, some not very liberal ones. He seems to consistently want to guarantee or prove to somebody, I don't know to whom, that he's a real Christian, and that's a real problem.
I said something to one of the other reporters at the White House, and they said no. But this on Tuesday, I was there at the White House, and I said, "What about this prayer break?" And the reporter had been on pool duty, so she was there, and she said, "Oh no, it was ecumenical, different kinds of Christian ministers." I said, "No. Ecumenical means you have people of different faiths."
Exactly.
Right? So first of all, even having an ecumenical prayer breakfast at the White House, I'm against.
I'm against it too.
I'm glad on solid ground there. So, and the annual prayer breakfast that they have, which I've always been invited to, I've never gone to because I oppose that too as a public display of religion, which I find offensive. But at least it's at a hotel.
It is at a hotel. That one, however, is sponsored by this notorious group called The Family, which, of course, is responsible for all kinds of bad interventions in U.S. and foreign policy. The notorious Uganda law that would have, as originally drafted, have allowed Uganda to kill gay people. So that's a really offensive thing. The only come to that, I'm sure my invitation got lost in the mail, but had I gotten it... Well, I mean, Bishop Gene Robinson and I and a refugee from Uganda wearing a mask, a paper mask, had a press conference a few years ago urging the president and at that time Secretary of State Clinton not to go to it, or at least if they went to it, to criticize this law in Uganda. And to her credit, Secretary Clinton did make a modest but important statement about what they were doing. So that was good.
Well, again, it's what happened at the White House, Susie, I think, again, a flagrant violation, a clear violation of the separation of church and state. And when you see that example given, it seems to me, that just leads to, particularly for Christian ministers, leads to this mythology that we are a Christian nation and leads to things like the Religious Freedom Restoration Act that I know you've been writing about and exercise about at Americans United in Indiana and I don't know how many other states.
It's on about 30 states. This started out as a thing that everybody could agree about. The Religious Freedom Restoration Act, passed in 1993, signed by Bill Clinton, supported by Ted Kennedy. This was, and by us. I mean, we supported it. We thought this was a law that would only be used when the heavy hand of government came down on some core religious principle of yours, and you could somehow not hurt anybody by continuing to do it. So we thought, in fact,
Native Americans.
Native Americans have an eagle feather that they're not supposed to have.
Yeah.
But so they use peyote, use huasca tea, or in the most recent Supreme Court case, a Muslim prisoner who had a half-inch beard was told by prison officials that he couldn't have it, even though it was central to his religion, because he could hide a weapon in it. Now, when you think about a half-inch beard, none of us have beards, but I can tell you, you have a half-inch beard, you cannot hide.
You're not going to hide an Uzi in it.
No,
right.
No Uzi, no anti-tank weapons, not even a knife. And that the Supreme Court agreed that was what the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, sister act, was designed to do.
That's not what we're talking about.
No. Now we're talking about a private party that says, I refuse to serve you, or I refuse to cater your wedding because my religion says I can't be a participant in it. A participant in a wedding is not if you're a caterer. I've done more than a few weddings, including 2 last summer. The caterers are not participants. They simply bring the food. So The most notorious one was a pizza shop that has raised close to $1 million now.
Right. Yeah.
Crowdsourcing. And they said they would serve a gay person who came in to buy one slice of pizza, but they would not cater a wedding with 500 slices of pizza. Now, theologically, because we've been down that track, legally, what's the distinction between one slice and 500 slices? You're either in the business, as a public accommodations laws say, of serving pizza, or you're not. If they don't want to serve a lot of people a lot of pizza, that shouldn't trump the right of someone to use a public accommodations law to say, look, I demand that this happen. You say you're going to serve pizza at weddings. I don't know, by the way, anybody who has a pizza at a wedding. I've never been at a pizza.
No.
I'd love to go to that wedding.
Just gay couples.
Yeah. You know, I have a lot of gay...
That was the insult.
I know.
That was the insult.
I have so many gay people on my staff, and of course, when this came over the wire last week, we happened to be having a meeting about it, and one person said, if I ordered pizza at my wedding, I would lose my gay card.
Yeah, automatic.
It's bingo. It's revoked. So, but things get worse because now the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. George Bush, remember George Bush? His Office of Legal Counsel, the end of his second administration, decides it's going to use the faith-based initiative, doling out money to groups that do discriminate on the basis of religion in hiring. And that, too, was justified by this extreme expansion of the idea of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. So you and Peter and I are all paying for somebody's discriminatory hiring in a job that's not supposed to be related to religion at all. It's serving people who are hungry, helping someone get to bed at night. I don't think Methodists and Presbyterians, Unitarians or atheists change the sheets in a homeless shelter any differently. Yet this remains on the books, sadly, in the Obama administration. It should be repealed.
It's 30 states. Who is behind? These just didn't pop up.
No.
Like California poppies some point. Who's behind these laws?
Well, I think right now what's happening is there is going to be later this month the oral argument in the marriage equality case at the Supreme Court. I don't know anybody who believes that marriage equality will not be the law across the United States by June the 30th, the last day. If you're going to have marriage equality, which the right-wingers talk about in apocalyptic terms, they say the Antichrist could come if this, in fact, is the law. How do we hurt these people? How do we hurt these gay people? And this Religious Freedom Restoration Act reinterpretation is exactly how they want to do that. That's a sad, pathetic thing to do, but that's what this is all about.
That's really the motivation.
I think there's no question about it. It's all because of the fear of what happens when gay people can actually get married anywhere in the United States via determination of the Supreme Court. That's what it's mainly about.
A last desperate act against marriage equality.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, maybe the courts will strike it down once and for all. Well, it's good to see you, Barry Lynn.
Very
Thank
nice
you for
to be
all
here.
the great work you're doing. I love reading your magazine every month and of the many fronts around the country where you're fighting these battles. And you should, too, and you can do so by just becoming a member, like I am, of Americans United for Separation of Church and State. It's au.org. Just au.org. Can't miss it. Thanks, Barry, for coming in.
Absolutely.
All right, see you again soon. We'll be back and say goodbye.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
All right, that wraps it up for a Thursday. President Obama at the Summit of the Americas today. Will he meet with President Raul Castro of Cuba? Of course he will. And I hope they just have a good substantive discussion. And I hope you have a great Thursday. And come back and see us again tomorrow morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.